Welcome to Video Game Compendium. In this episode, we will talk about our opinions on overrated games and maybe learn a life lesson. So, Ocarina of Time, though.
Okay. What is Ocarina of Time besides a worse Wind Waker?
It came out before Wind Waker.
Exactly. So Wind Waker, as a video game should, builds on the previous one, but makes it better. Right?
And that's what it did.
Yeah. So Wind Waker, you just said, is a better Ocarina of Time. So Ocarina of Time is immediately out of the running for best Zelda game.
Well, Wind Waker is a better Zelda game in general. Like, that's... Okay. Ocarina of Time
Alright, so it's great. We've started off with you agreeing with me right out of the gate. I like that.
Okay. But let's talk about the real best Zelda game, which is A Link to the Past.
Is it, though?
Yes.
So that's why they didn't continue on that format for Zelda?
Oh, except they did, because when they made A Link Between Worlds, the arguably second... or it's the best handheld Zelda game for sure.
Okay.
And, like, Link Between Worlds was a direct sequel, pretty much, to Link to the Past, and it's up there with Zelda games. The best of them.
Okay. But it's not the best Zelda game.
Link to the Past?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Why?
How isn't it?
How is it?
Because,
See,
okay...
So... I feel like it's overhyped. It's the... Zelda aficionado's answer for the best Zelda game. I think that's partially because the only people who've played it are Zelda aficionados, and they think that it's a badge.
Well, no, it's not even that it's a... Like, if you're looking for a badge, like, for a Zelda aficionado, you'd be... Sorry, I had to use the same word as you.
That's
you would
okay.
be... you would be looking at, like, the CDI versions of Zelda. Or,
oh, come on. Those aren't even...
like,
Nintendo didn't make those, did they?
No, but Capcom made Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, so... I mean, when we really talk about Zelda games here, like... I think that's more of a badge as well. Like, or beating both of those and then getting the combined ending for the two? Come on. Like, that's the Zelda badge that you would wear. Not, oh, I beat Link to the Past.
Okay, so why are those games not in the running for best Zelda game?
Because they weren't as fluid.
Zelda-y? Oh.
No,
So it's a flaw as a game and not as a flaw of being bad at a Zelda franchise.
Right.
Okay.
To me, it's more like it. A Link to the Past had good combat, it had a good story, and the way they balanced what you did was really fun. And the dungeons were super fun. And dungeons are a huge part of what makes Zelda good. And that's one reason why I think Breath of the Wild got a little too much hype, because the dungeons that they had were basically non-existent.
Okay.
They had 4 real dungeons and then a bunch of, like, mini-games, essentially.
Okay, so I haven't played Breath of the Wild aside from like 5 minutes on someone else's console, but it was a wonderful experience.
Oh no, it's good.
5 minutes. So going back, the things you listed that are great about A Link to the Past.
Mm-hmm.
What can't you say about Wind Waker? Everything you just said, I feel the same for Wind Waker.
The thing that holds Wind Waker back, in like, this is my opinion here.
Don't say the sailing.
Is it got mundane to try and find certain things. Like, when you're looking for the 8 pieces of the Triforce shards, like...
Oh, dude, come on.
That part got kind of boring. Like,
really?
Well, that's because the game had a certain pace where you're, like, doing this, doing that, doing this, and then all of a sudden you're on, like, an actually kind of lengthy part of the game where you're just looking for these shards. And the shards weren't anything spectacular to find most of the time. So it was just like, I feel like that kind of broke the whole pace of the game and the pacing of the story. And see, with Wind Waker HD, they kind of fixed it, but they also ruined it at the same time because they only did 3 Triforce shards instead of 8, and the
What?
3,
I didn't know that.
yeah, and they were super easy to find. So it was just like boom, done, and then the game continues on. But I feel like it took away from the actual like experience overall.
Huh. Okay. So, when I was looking for the Triforce shards, I wasn't just doing that. I was going for the rest of the completion. I was looking for the tingles. I was trying to like 100% it, and it felt like I'm going on my adventure. I'm sailing. I'm finding these little islands. Oh, what's that over there? I'm gonna go check it out.
I'm going on my adventure. No.
And I mean, so that it felt like I was going on an adventure to do some stuff.
Right.
I don't feel that in A Link to the Past. I'm not going on an adventure. I'm walking between screens. It's a limitation of the technology and the game mechanics that were like fleshed out at the time. So it's old and there's less to do. And
when
it
did
feels
you play Link to the Past, though?
Not when I was young.
Okay, and see, that's part of the problem, I feel like, because if you played it when it was still like a new thing or newer thing, you're going to get that experience from it where you were going on an adventure and it was like this big thing versus like a lot of other games at the time, especially. Well, I don't know, Super Nintendo had a lot of good adventure games, but
yeah, and I don't think A Link to the Past is top adventure game
for Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing else is coming to mind right now, but it can't be. There's no way that was the best.
Okay, if it's not the best, it's definitely up there. I can't think of one off the top that is just as good. But what it really boils down to is people who say Ocarina of Time is the best Zelda game are just wrong.
Okay, that we can agree on.
Because every time you ask someone what their favorite Zelda game is, it's usually A Link to the Past or Wind Waker. Or not Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. Or if they're edgy, they'll say Majora's Mask, and then you just gotta stop talking to them and walk away.
And just tell them.
Okay, so yeah, I mentioned this before we started, but Ocarina of Time is a worse Wind Waker, so
I mean,
it has no business being the best Zelda game.
Ocarina of Time wasn't a bad Zelda game. It just
it was version 1 of Wind Waker, and Wind Waker just made it better.
It felt like it wanted to do more like grand things, but it could be limitations of the technology at the time, but it didn't really fulfill any of the needs like that a Zelda game should have, especially with like after you play Breath of the Wild. Like that game is fucking massive and it's just open world, and that's what I feel like they were trying to do with Ocarina of Time, but just kind of failed.
Yeah, and I mean for the time it was big, but now we look at the map and it's like there was 4 things to do on that map.
Yeah,
it's weak.
Yeah,
but it's good because it let Wind Waker happen.
And, well, Nintendo's been milking it, like, hardcore. They're like, oh, all of our old Zelda fans who played Ocarina of Time. I don't know. It just kills me when people say, like, Ocarina of Time was their favorite. And I'm like, there are at least 3 better Zeldas out there than Ocarina of Time.
Agreed.
At least 3.
So, Ocarina of Time, overrated game.
Ocarina of Time is an overrated game.
Moving on.
That's what it boils down to. Also, Persona 3 is overrated when it comes to the Persona series.
We'll get to that. I know it's if anything, it's underrated now.
No, 2 is underrated.
Okay, so we should save Persona for a Persona session.
Just like entire Persona.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll talk about all that.
So what was the hardest Zelda game?
None of them.
I would say Breath of the Wild.
Okay. Well, how come?
Because it had like temples that, or not temples. I shouldn't call them temples. They were shrines. They called them shrines in the game. They had shrines that were called like minor test of strength or major test of strength.
Okay.
And basically, it was a guardian in quotations here. I'm doing the finger air quotes.
Okay.
For people that can't see me. And they were called Guardians, and they were basically like these robots that you would have to like parry or dodge their attacks and slowly hack away at them. And it actually made the game, like, especially early on, if you ended up in a major test of strength, when you're still have only a few hearts and like really crappy just shit gear, you're gonna get shit on. Like, that thing's gonna hit you once and you're gonna ghost.
Okay. So it's a patience thing.
No, it's not necessarily a patience thing, because that would imply that there isn't skill involved, because you can parry, like, almost all of the attacks that they have, minus the laser beam. Actually, you can parry the laser beams, too. So everything that they have, you can parry with your shield. But it weakens your shield, and you have to make sure you have enough shields to, like, absorb all those hits.
So it's not just the technical.
Yeah, it's like
hurdle.
Resource management, and also, like, pure, I guess, just skill, if you will. Because if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. No, if you can dodge their attack, if you can dodge their attacks or parry them, it makes the the shrine a whole lot easier.
Okay, so you call that skill? That's technical skill. I mean, that's input precision,
right? Very input heavy.
Okay, so I would also say patience is a skill. It's my weakest skill when playing that type of boss fight or game, where I need to be patient. I need to just let the boss finish his attack pattern and then go in and counter him or attack him. So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, to an extent, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, it's not really patience, because you're not waiting for anything. I guess if they started an animation and you didn't catch them in time, then yeah, you're gonna have to patiently wait. But I guess the only time that I can think of that you have to be patient in a game is something like the Soul series, Soulsborne, or I think they call it. Like, I don't know.
So the whole From Software money making.
Yeah,
scheme they got going on right
they're
now.
cash grab right now.
Yeah, just reskin it, make another one, release it.
That's what other people have been doing, and they hide under the guise of, oh, this is a difficult game, so you're gonna love it because it's like Souls, even though difficult games have been since the beginning of time.
Yeah, so Souls becoming a replacement, Souls-like, right? That's a replacement term for a hard game,
right? Well,
like they're people are using it as a synonym,
kind of, but it's also
they're wrong.
That's true. They're also saying, like, there are Souls-like games, like Lords of the Fallen is one that comes immediately to mind. That is like basically the same exact gameplay style of the Souls games. It's just made by a different company, because everyone's trying to cash in on that whole craze right now where a game is actually difficult.
Okay, so and you and I criticize that type of game as being difficult for boring reasons, right?
Absolutely.
It's difficult in the sense that you get punished for making mistakes.
No. It's difficult in the sense that you get punished for not being patient enough.
Okay, that's a more specific mistake. Yeah, so patience, and that's about it, right?
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing that makes it difficult, is, like, if you don't wait for them to, like, attack, or if you don't, like, have the patience to dodge for, like, a minute or two, like, literally 60 seconds of dodging, then, like, that's it.
So, like, patience is the most important, or the only thing it takes to actually beat a Dark Souls game?
The only thing.
It's the only thing. So your technical skill can be very bad, but as long as you're patient, you can still beat it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So why do people like that? People don't like being patient.
Well, because it's considered hard, and so I think people like to wear it, again with the whole badge thing, I think they like to wear it like a badge. Like, oh, I beat all the Souls games. I beat Bloodborne. They're hard games, so I'm obviously a good gamer. And every time it's just like, well, no, you're just patient enough to sit there and watch some shitty animation. Well, actually, the animations aren't that bad, but
yeah,
you're patient enough to sit there and watch the animations go by as you try and play this game. So, and the thing that kills me the most is when people are like, oh, you should play these games like Dark Souls, and it's just like,
yeah, that's where it gets upsetting, because if there's a game I don't like, or a type of game I don't like, it's easy to ignore it. You don't play it, you don't like it, move on.
Yeah.
But as people who are interested in games like to do, we like to read about what's happening in video games. And when it becomes article after article of Dark Souls difficulty comparisons, or you're reading about a game that's coming out, nothing to do with Dark Souls. It's not a roguelike at all, but it has a technical difficulty. And then the person writing the article starts throwing Soulsy in there, and you're just like, son of a bitch.
No, this game's gonna be shit now.
or I mean, I think that curses games, because people are gonna read that and go, oh, it's gonna be another Dark Souls.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then it comes out, and it's absolutely not. The developers had no intention of making a Dark Souls type game, and then it gets flooded with user reviews of, oh, this game sucks, it's nothing like Dark Souls, don't play it, etc., etc.
Right, it sets a false precedent of what the game is supposed to be or be like, and then people get mad at that.
Yep.
But, like, okay, so when you think about, like, the whole, like, I guess, hack and slash, except difficult, if you will, because that's kind of what Dark Souls is adventure, hack and slash.
I mean, it's a dodge and slash.
But, yeah, okay.
The hack and slash implies you're doing a lot of action, right? I mean, that's what I think of. Dynasty Warriors, right? Devil May Cry.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of action.
So, Devil May Cry is a perfect example. Like, if you play Devil May Cry on some of the harder difficulties, it's essentially like Dark Souls, except
with a more technical challenge, right?
Exactly, because everything that you have to do, you actually have to, like, look at the animations of the characters and, like, respond to that versus just making sure you keep your distance and dodge constantly.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
you can, but you're not gonna win the game that way.
No, and you're gonna get a D rating. That's not stylish.
Yeah,
I mean, 1-on-1 and dodging the whole time. No, that's not how you're supposed to play Devil May Cry.
But, like, I remember back when Ninja Gaiden came out for Xbox, or is it Gaiden?
I say Gaiden.
I say Gaiden too.
Okay.
I guess I think it's Gaiden though.
I think it's Gaiden.
No, it
Gaiden doesn't sound like a
Gaiden.
Japanese word. Gaiden sounds more.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Anyway,
the nuances of the Japanese language. So
our American accents, we can call it Gaiden.
Gaiden. Okay, so when it came out for Xbox, it was fucking hard. Like, the game was just ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
And everyone, like, that was actually a badge because beating that was like, holy shit, you actually beat a hard game. And granted, it was hard for some, like, bullshit reasons at times where, like, some of the bosses were pretty cheap and you just basically... But again, that goes along with, like, old school gameplay of, like, the old Mega Mans or the old Ninja Gaiden where you had to memorize the patterns in order to actually dodge whatever it was they were throwing at you.
Yeah. So that, maybe because of when we grew up playing games, that was difficulty. Was being punished for being wrong.
Not being punished for being impatient.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of goes... If you're impatient, you're going to be wrong a lot, and you're going to be punished a lot, and you're going to suck at video games.
But they kind of set it up, like... I remember playing Demon Souls for the first time, and everyone's like, oh, it's the hardest game ever, hardest game ever, hardest game ever. And I find out the parry in that game is super fucking broke for normal enemies. And then the bosses, as long as you keep a distance from them and dodge, and then whack, 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 and then dodge, 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 couple more hits, and then dodge a couple more times, and then a couple more hits, and like slowly whittle their health down. Like, it wasn't a problem. And they basically tell you to do that in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, so I remember that game very well. When it was coming out, we were both working at the game store, and I was hype as hell about it. And I told everybody, gotta get this game. Because you pre-order it, and you got that edition that came with the guide. Like a full-color guide, right? And
it came in that sweet, like, brownish case rather than the blue case, I think.
Yep. Yeah, no, I have it right over here.
I'm looking at it right now.
No, it was a sweet collector first printing edition. It wasn't, I mean, it was the same $60. It was just the first printing got you this bonus stuff. And I'm flipping through the guide, and it tells you have to cheap out these enemies. These enemies are insane. If you run into them early on, your equipment sucks. If you make mistakes, you're going to go down immediately. So, trap him behind a box and let a boulder fall on him. Or make him follow you and he falls in this hole.
Yeah.
And so I thought that the Demon Souls was a more niche or like campy type of game.
But it wasn't. Well, no.
So it was, but it turned out to spawn this whole Dark Souls thing. And I mean, why is that? Because it wasn't a game that was good enough to merit, a spiritual successor, sequel, whatever you want to call it.
It was. I think it was the hype around it. Like, people, it became the word of mouth hardest game ever, and so everyone was like, "Oh, I want to play the hardest game ever." Or, I would like to see a sequel to the hardest game ever, and that sort of, I think, birthed what we know as the Souls games as they are now.
Okay, so but the other thing is, Demon Souls had more depth than Dark Souls does, as far as gameplay options. I mean, Dark Souls basically as far as mass appeal, there's one way to play it. Demon Souls, I mean, you had much more options. There was much more going on. There was the whole light dark thing, where like on Halloween, they tipped the servers to dark, so everything was super hard. And then around Christmas, they chipped them to light, so things were easier to kill. And did they keep any of that going with the Dark Souls?
That I'm not sure of. I know that like people make up their own challenges for the Souls, like the Dark Souls games, where they will like say that you can only use fists, or you can't use any bonfires, or this or that, and like basically they set artificial limitations for themselves so that it's more difficult. And whatever.
And that's
fine.
right. I think that's, I mean, across the board, but you don't have to do that in a Souls game.
Right. Like, I guess in any game, if you do that, like you beat a game once and then the next time you're like, oh, I want to beat it with just this, or doing this one specific thing every time. Actually, that reminds me of the time I got super pissed off at Dead Rising 3 because I kept trying to shoot the final boss and I couldn't kill him, and he just kept destroying me. And I was getting so fucking mad. I almost chucked my controller. Like, I was just so fucking pissed off. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to punch him to death. And so I got up on the platform that he's on, and I literally just used my fists to kill him. And it took me probably, I'd say, like 20 minutes longer than it needed to, but yeah. I felt pretty satisfied after punching him to death.
No, that is rad. I remember that boss. I got pissed off trying to kill him, trying to shoot him as well. I got him pretty close. And then I hit a point where I'm like, I don't like this game that much. I'm okay with just putting this down and walking away.
You didn't beat it?
No.
Oh, God.
Dude,
You were right there!
It was a test of will, I guess, and I gave up. I walked away. I don't care.
I guess the worst part was when he knocked you on your ass, he would like pull out the grenade launcher and go like shoot it like everywhere, and it was just like, oh my fucking, are you joking me? Yeah, that shit irritated the hell out of me.
That was dumb. I like my favorite part about the first Dead Rising was just not fighting any bosses. We just go dig around, do your thing.
Oh yeah,
you don't have to say you don't have no obligation. Just survive.
Get the Mega Man suit.
Yeah,
I feel like. Okay, so what about games like, I guess, Dead Rising, or like those almost niche games that have been good enough to warrant sequels, but not good enough to get like the same mass appeal like Call of Duty or the Souls games, or whatever. Like how would you place those on the overrated spectrum?
So for Dead Rising, I think that's a specific case that kind of repeats itself, where the game, so game one is pretty niche, or it has things that appeal to really specific groups, but then the sequel tries to appeal to a much broader audience. And then it loses its charm. I guess Demon's Souls for me did this when it transitioned to Dark Souls, is it tried to appeal to more people and lost a lot of its charm along the way.
Well, I mean, it's all about that green, that money.
I mean, I get it, but...
But, no, I feel you, because like there are plenty of developers that are completely okay with making niche games and like letting them be their own thing. Like Atlas, for example, like every game they make is pretty much a niche game, and if you're not with it, you're not going to play it probably. Right.
Yeah, Atlas, for the most part, if we're talking about the Shin Megami
Etrian Odyssey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Etrian Odyssey.
Like, pretty much all the games that they have actually developed themselves have been, like, kind of in that corner of, like, you have to be almost a weeb to play them.
Well, because nobody's going to pick it up and buy it. They'll look at it on the shelf and be like, nah, this is not for me. I'm going to pick up the new Madden.
Which is unfortunate, because, like, games like... I just beat Persona 5 recently, and, like, that game was fantastic. And, like, I would honestly recommend it to anyone, because it has a fairly coherent, like, storyline that's not outside of the realm of, like, anything you wouldn't play normally. The only, like, caveat to that is the dialogue in it's really cheesy. But, like, I'm sure people can see past cheese in exchange for really great gameplay, really great music, and a really great story. I'd hope so, anyway. And if you can't, then you're just fucking up.
Agreed completely. So I just picked up Persona 5, and when we beat it, I'm sure we will go in more depth.
Well, when you beat it, that's when we're going to have another podcast talking about Persona 5 specifically for at least 2 hours.
Okay.
I'm just joking.
No, 2 hours is probably not enough.
I probably could, though, because that game just has... Okay, I'm done.
All right, walk away.
Another so back onto the whole, like, difficult games, but also we can talk about, like, niche games in the same, like Ori and the Blind Forest or any other Metroidvania game.
Okay, so Metroid's not difficult.
Well, no, not really.
I'm going to say that. But Castlevania can be, because it's cheap.
Yeah. But again,
I say that in a totally endearing way. I mean, I love the cheapness of Castlevania.
It's about, like, memorizing the patterns and, like, knowing what to do against an enemy versus just, if I wait long enough, it'll eventually, I can hit it and kill it.
Right. It's more about knowing what to expect. It's got the Mega Man thing where you jump to the next screen and you know something's going to try and hit you out of the air and knock you, and you're going to hit some spikes. It's going to be
you're gonna fucking
game over,
rage.
man. Yeah. So,
but
is that hard?
But the Metroidvania games of nowadays, like Guacamelee, Ori and the Blind Forest.
Guacamelee is my favorite Metroidvania game of the last 5 years. It's probably older than that now.
Yeah, that game is really good, but it's also, like, I would say it's more difficult than your standard game.
Okay, that I can get on board with.
I'm not saying it's like super difficult, like classic NES difficulty, but I'm not placing it in the same realm of like, oh, I can just run in and kill everything, because you can't. You'll get wrecked.
Yeah. Should we talk about arcade difficulty? I mean, that's like a tangent on a tangent, but like Contra hard.
Contra is hard.
Contra is very hard. Metal Slug is hard.
Metal Slug is very hard.
Those games are supposed to be hard.
But
so you keep chucking the quarters in it, right?
Like, I think that was more so, like, you would pay money for it. Because, like, if you remember, like, any of the beat-em-up games from the arcade days, like, those games were notoriously hard. Like, if you were really good, you could probably get away with beating it after, spending a couple bucks. If you're not really good, you're going to end up spending $5 to $10 on one single game, and maybe not even beat it.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess that whole thing in itself, like, arcades just have their own difficulty, but I don't think it's because of the game developers were like, oh yeah, let's make this game hard. They were like, how can we maximize profits with this?
Right.
Let It Die is a game that does that.
It does?
Have you played it?
I totally forgot about it. Now that I have a PS4, I gotta install it.
Yeah,
because I want to play that game for the charm, for the Suda51.
Yeah, because it's essentially a Souls game. I can't lie. Like, the gameplay style is very much like a Souls game, but to me, it's a lot more fun.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's just because of the way the characters are designed and everything that they do with it is what made it, like, better for me. Because then it was, like, quirky versus trying to be a serious story but not telling it properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So Demon Souls I played way more than any of the other Souls games. I didn't play Bloodborne.
It was okay.
It's
that's how I feel about all the games. Is they're okay.
Yeah.
They're not terrible games. They're just so over fucking rated.
Okay, so how come did you beat all of the Souls games?
No.
Me either.
I didn't care to.
Right. So I love a challenge. Meat Boy, super challenging. We can talk more about him later. But the Souls games offer a challenge, but how come people who aren't into the same challenge as we are will play those games to completion and replay them, but we won't?
I think it's because you and I care also about, like, story and the way it's presented. And, like, I guess, like, a game like Super Meat Boy is a good example of there's not really much of a story. It's like you gotta get from point A to point B to catch.
That's not what you play.
But, like, the game is hard enough and, like, fun enough that you want to keep doing it. Whereas, and I think this goes back to the whole patience thing, like, I can be patient all day if I want to, but it's so boring to me.
But at the same time, you are patient, just at different games. And I might be using patience as a more loose term, but so I mean, for example, when it comes to rhythm games or a Castlevania game, you have patience.
Yeah.
You have
but it's a different kind of patience because I'm not just sitting around waiting for shit. Well, I guess with a rhythm game you are, because literally you have to wait.
You're literally waiting.
But you're constantly doing something. Like DDR, you're constantly moving your feet, or like drum.
Okay.
Like Drum Mania Rock Band, you're constantly doing something and you're actively responding to what's happening on the screen. Whereas the Souls games, you can back far enough away, run in, hit, back far enough away, run in, hit, and it's just like, I don't like doing that, because like, if I wanted to play a button masher game, I'd play Dead or Alive. That was a quick jab at all you Dead or Alive fans.
Wow. That guy is gonna be so mad. He's unsubscribing right now.
That guy, the singular guy who's mad about me making a Dead or Alive joke. You fucking asshole. Make fun of my favorite fighting game of all time.
So what I like in a challenge is seeing myself get better. I like a Super Meat Boy where there's left, right, jump, and sprint
And
modifier.
precision jumping.
Yeah, and so you start with those 4 buttons, and you end with those 4 buttons, and everything in between is you.
Right.
So you have to get better at the game to progress, and I don't feel like that was happening in Dark Souls for me.
Well, and that's
there is improvement. Mm-hmm. It's not required, and it's a much slower pace than what I find enjoyable.
right. And I guess that was my idea of when we were talking about patience. Like, you have to have the patience to just sit there and basically not do anything versus, like, Meat Boy, where you're literally, every jump you make will determine if you're going to actually survive or not. And some of them, I don't know how, like, tight the timing window is, but some of them are pretty, like, frame perfect moves.
No, God, especially Bandage Girl's World. I mean, that game was hard, but
yeah,
that was like a brick wall for me when I hit that.
I'd say half that game was a brick wall for me. That I would sit there and punch at for, a couple hours and then go, all right, you know what? I'm not going to beat it this time. Come back to it later. And then I would, and then I'd beat it, but, I'd sit there, banging my head against the wall going, why the fuck is this game so hard? It doesn't look hard.
So, I guess that's the difference between you and me. When I would die at the game, I wouldn't say, why is this game so hard? I would say, why am I so bad? And so it was me versus myself. Like, get better. Stop making the same stupid mistakes. You keep fucking this part up. Stop doing it. Be better. And in the Souls games, I didn't feel like that. I felt like, oh my god, I died. I'm gonna have to wait for that dragon to swoop by again. Like, it's the little things that add up, where it's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to beat the Dead Rising 3 boss. I know I could do it. I don't need to do it.
You should.
Why?
The ending to that game was actually pretty decent.
Dude, I looked up the ending on YouTube.
Oh.
I never do that, but...
Man, you're a real...
I did it. I'm losing all credibility right now.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You're not a real gamer, clearly.
No, I'm not.
I feel like that's the difference, for me, in an overrated game and a game that I feel like either isn't appropriately rated or, like, people don't talk about it enough. Where the game is just boring to me, or it doesn't actually accomplish what other people say it does. Like, No Man's Sky. Holy shit.
Was that a game? Nah.
People, okay, to be fair, a lot of people shit on that game. But the people that liked it tried to say it was, like, the best game ever and that it was the best experience in a video game they've ever had. And maybe for them it was, but, like, all I have to say to that is you need to play more fucking video games. Because, like, if you really think that's the best that video games have to offer, then you're missing out on, like, crucial games that, like, actually changed the landscape.
Yeah, so No Man's Sky is kind of weird because it's not a game for people who play games. It didn't feel like it when I first heard about it. When I learned about what the game was about, when people started playing it, it's not a game for people who play games. It's an experience,
right?
It's a Abzu or Echo the Dolphin or
Journey,
Flower,
Flow,
all those one-word games. It's an experience, and I'll give it that. But it's not a game.
I mean, okay, I would still call it a game. However, I feel like it's been done before. Well, I guess that specific style has not necessarily been done before, but the concept has been there, and people like try to tout it as this new idea and like this fresh thing that is like completely going to change the game, and it's not going to change anything. Like, honestly, I think Star Citizen has a better chance of changing the landscape of how video games work versus No Man's Sky. And they're essentially the same fucking thing.
Yeah. So what lesson can we take from No Man's Sky?
Don't trust the media, and don't trust developers when they tell you that their game is going to be the biggest game, because just because it's big doesn't mean it's good, right?
True.
Basically, don't trust developers. You know, like you.
Well, one, don't, but not for that reason. So it's that's interesting, because usually developers, I mean, when I'm thinking about the games I like, or the developers I like, I should say, they don't have power on how their game is received.
But in this
how
specific,
come for this case that happened?
Because they kept saying like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. It was the Fable effect. Remember when Peter Molyneux was like, this is going to be game-changing, every decision you make, every conversation you have is going to change the outcome of the end of the game, and like all this shit. And then when the game came out, everyone was like, I feel like we've seen this before in pretty much every other RPG we've played, so what are you talking about?
Okay, so that, Peter Molyneux's not a developer, dude. He's a designer. Marketing.
He was the director of the game.
Yeah, but he's not a developer. So a director can have any stupid idea he wants. He's not going to get it implemented.
Are you sure?
So that's a runaway director, man. That's the director or designer promising the Earth.
1 second here.
Not being able to know any better that he can't deliver on it.
Because he has created games. He created Populous, Black and White. Do you remember those games? Black and White was actually pretty fun.
Yeah. Did he develop Fable? No.
I bet he did. Because
how many lines of code do you think he wrote for Fable 2?
For Fable Lost Chapters, he is listed as a designer.
Exactly. That's not a developer.
For Black and White, he was concept, lead designer, and programmer.
Okay, so I should stop using the word how I use it. Development studio. He is part of the development studio, and they did promise too much.
Yeah, well, and okay. Don't
so
trust.
I got pedantic there. I'm sorry. I'll redact my criticisms.
And that was the problem with Fable, is he promised all these things, and then when he didn't deliver, the game didn't seem as good as it could have been, because he said he was going to do all this stuff, but then he didn't.
Okay.
And I mean, his fault, developer's fault, anyone's fault, it doesn't matter, because they said they were going to do it, and they didn't. They fell short of their promise. I still think that Fable became kind of an overrated game. Oh, which also reminds me of another overrated game, fucking Mass Effect. God damn, dude.
Okay, so alright, so let's try and learn something from No Man's Sky and Fable, and that is, if you're developing a game, less is more.
Under promise, over deliver.
There you go. I mean, that's software across. That's life across the board.
I was about to say that should
life.
be life. You should always promise less than you can give, knowing that you might be able to give more.
Yeah.
And then when you do, people be like, "Hey, you did a great job."
Yeah.
Versus, you didn't really live up to my expectations. Basically, what we're saying is slack off all the time, and then suddenly do what you would normally do, and people will be surprised at the outcome.
I don't know if slacking off is required. I think it's be humble. Maybe that's part of it, right?
Kind of like that new
Sell
Kendrick Lamar
yourself
song.
Short. I don't listen to music.
Oh, what's music? I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know that that's a song.
If it's not in a rhythm game, I probably haven't heard it.
I bet you've heard of Savage Garden.
The guys who did the Poké Rap. Or no, the Pokemon opening. Sorry. The Poké Rap. I don't think that's the same guys.
I'm pretty sure it's not. That's hilarious.
Oh, man. But imagining it, that's pretty fun. Imagining those two guys in a recording studio Doing the poker rap? I mean, come on. Try not to smile.
All right, Savage Garden, we're looking at you. Let's make it happen. Come on, chop chop. So, okay, so we can learn that if you're in a position where you're going to be trying to sell your game, don't say that you're going to do something that you're not going to be able to do.
Yeah.
Or
so the hard part
yet,
there is not knowing what you won't be able to do.
But okay, only promise what you've got done. How about that?
I can
because
get on board with that.
Games are in development for long enough that you can show off what you've got done and go, this is what we can do with this game, versus here's what we're planning on doing, and then fall short in every aspect.
Yeah, that's... But, I mean, Fable 2 wasn't a failure, was it?
Kind of. Because it was basically Fable 1, except Fable 2.
Yeah, but so was it a financial failure?
Probably not too bad. Let's take a peek.
Are you going to look up the numbers?
I'm
Development
see if
cost versus revenue?
Look up the numbers. It doesn't say marketing, blah 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 blah. Wait, here we go. Sales. Debut month 79,000 or 790,000. As of March 11th, 2010, 3.5 million copies. It is the best-selling RPG title for Xbox 360.
All right, so that's not a failure.
It should have been a failure. I'm just sure. Fable 2 was actually decent. It wasn't the best game ever, but I would say it was decent. Fable 3, though, if that sold well, then people are just silly. This one doesn't have sales for Fable 3. They're killing me.
Okay, so how long do you have to play a game before you decide that it's overrated?
Well, it depends, because some games rely on the entire story to be told before I feel like you can be an accurate judge of this game is overrated. Because like games like BioShock or The Last of Us, the game relies so heavily on the story that if you don't experience the whole story, I don't think it's fair for you to try and say it's overrated.
Okay. Mass Effect. How much of Mass Effect do I have to play before I'm allowed to say it's overrated?
Any of it, because that game is super overrated.
But
all of them.
Because the story doesn't meet your standards?
Well, the story doesn't... the story was okay, and the gameplay was just okay. And that was my biggest problem with it, is everything about it was mediocre, but everyone that talked about it positively tried to say it was like sliced bread of gaming. And I guess we hear that a lot, where people are like, oh, this is the best game ever, this is the best this is the best that, and it's like, I think you need to slow your roll a little bit.
Okay. Maybe we should have people on arguing why an overrated game that they enjoy is not overrated.
Okay, tell me a game that you think, or a game that you know I like that you think is overrated. Go.
There's so many to pick from. Okay, so here's the thing. I have a credibility issue when I call games overrated, because if I think it's overrated, I'm not going to waste my time with it, and I'm not going to be able to argue why it's overrated because I gave up on it.
Okay, well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't still call it overrated, because say the game, and here's an argument to what I said earlier, it's a story-driven game like BioShock, and say the story just doesn't capture you at all, and neither does the gameplay, then I guess you're within your right to say it's overrated.
Yeah.
I would actually sit there and argue with you and be like, well, I feel like you should finish it before you try and make a full judgment call, because it does rely on the full story to be told. But
if I feel like it wasn't worth continuing, and that's why it's overrated, then why should I have to spend another 20 hours just so I can tell you that you have bad ideas?
Well, BioShock is not 20 hours long.
How long is BioShock?
Maybe 13 at most.
Okay. Alright, so list... Oh, you know what? Batman. Arkham...
Which one?
Arkham whatever.
Arkham City? Arkham Knight?
Overrated.
Well, okay, so Batman Arkham Asylum was really good because it was the first beat-em-up Batman game that worked. And the story on top of that was fairly decent. And it wasn't, like, childish. They didn't go the whole animated Batman route where... Well, and when I say animated, I don't mean, like, the original animated series, because that was pretty dark. But I'm saying, like, they didn't go, like, the whole,
Batman Beyond? Is that the one?
No, Batman Beyond was pretty good, too, with Terry McGinnis. Batman aficionado.
Sorry.
Phil McCracken?
Yeah.
Who's Phil McCracken?
Anyway. Okay, so Batman, I mean, it was a fun game. I think it would have saved itself from my stamp of overrated if it wasn't attached to the Batman IP. Did you just search Phil McCracken?
So, the only Phil McCrackens, there's a couple of them, but there's an Urban Dictionary for Phil McCracken.
That's the one I'm referring
to. And I'm an idiot.
Yes, you are. Lesson learned.
Fill my crack in.
No, I'll pass.
Fuck you. Meet Phil McCracken. I thought it was Bend Over. Come on, you should have went with, like, the classic, not...
Dude, Phil McCracken is a classic.
I've never heard that.
Oh, you didn't watch The Simpsons. I think that's where it's from.
Oh, well, there you go. Now making hipster references to obscure shows.
Obscure shows.
Yeah, Simpsons is super obscure. No one's ever heard of it.
No. People are going to be Googling it right
now. What is The Simpsons? Okay, what was I saying? Why Batman is a good game. Okay, so the first one...
Okay, so, alright. Good game. It can be a good game and overrated. I'm saying it's overrated.
Why it wasn't not an overrated game? Well, okay, first off, it probably didn't see the same commercial success as games like Call of Duty, which are so overrated that I could probably...
We don't even need to talk about them.
Right.
Honestly.
Like, those are non-issue. But I think that because it was one of the first superhero... Well, there were a couple before it, but one of the first, like, modern superhero games that really worked. And that's why I think it deserves the credit that it gets, at least up until Arkham City, because Arkham City was the first, like, real open-world superhero game, and it worked really well. The only problem I had with it is, as you got further into the game, the enemies went from having just their fists to having guns galore, like snipers and machine guns, and it was just like, how did the guys at the beginning not have the same equipment as the guys at the end, because they were the same enemies? So that but I still think, like, it was one of the first superhero games that really did it well in that style.
So it deserves all the hype because it was a Batman game that didn't suck,
I guess. I mean, to put in short, because a lot of Batman games do suck. Let's be real here.
That one actually falls under a game that sucks for me. So all Batman games suck.
Objectively, it's a good game, though.
Okay, yeah, like I said before, if it didn't have anything to do with Batman, it would have been more fun.
But I think that's what made it fun, is that you finally get to play as Batman and actually have fun with Batman, not just...
Oh, I see. Okay, so the reason I think it's overrated is because I have an inherent problem with Batman being overrated.
Okay, so there's your problem, is...
Okay.
You don't actually think the game is overrated, you think Batman is overrated.
And the game being associated with Batman, therefore, is also overrated.
Well...
Because it's not a bad game. Do I think that it deserved a $200 collector's edition? No, God no.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a whole different discussion.
That's
that
a money
we could get
grab
into.
because Batman fans spend Batman money, bat dollars.
I mean, if they were spending Batman money, we'd all be billionaires. So that'd be pretty dope. I could get down with that.
Don't hold your breath.
What if I did?
This podcast would be very short.
All right, ready, set, go.
No!
End. No, there are so many other games that I feel like deserve the overrated title, especially over Batman. In this case.
I'm very liberal with my overrated title. Dude, I'll throw it on anything.
No, I do too a lot of the time. Like, I would say that The Last of Us is overrated. However, there's too many people that I see shit on it all the time that I can't say it's overrated anymore. Because, and I don't know if it's just because they're trying to be edgy or what, but the game had solid combat mechanics and one of the best stories video games will probably ever see. And
it was gorgeous.
Especially the remaster. Especially for the time, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's on the PS3 and it looks insane. And you know me, I don't care about looks when it comes to video games. I like some really ugly games.
Yeah, you do. Most of the games you play are ugly, like anime weeb games. So,
maybe, I don't know. I have a hard time confessing to that when I look at my shelf and I see a lot of non-anime weeb games.
But the ones that you play seriously, I would say. Like, you have a passive gameplay mode, and then a serious gameplay mode, and your serious games are weeb games, and then your passive mode is non-weeb games.
I think I might just be exposing you to the weeb games a little bit too much. Because I see some stuff in these games that I'm just like, oh my god, Casey needs to know about this right now.
But, okay, so, like, to me, the weeb games are always underrated. They never get the type of attention that I feel like they deserve. Even though some of them are, like, really over-the-top and corny and just ridiculous, I still feel like they deserve a better rating or more commercial success than they get.
Yes. Should we end by talking about an underrated game? Let's pick one.
One underrated game.
Yeah.
This is a tough decision.
It doesn't have to be the most underrated. Just,
I know. One underrated game, though. Like, Super Mario RPG.
Oh, you cannot. That's a Nintendo property. You can't.
But Super Mario RPG as a whole is just a game that deserved so much more credit than it got.
Okay.
But, okay.
No, alright. So you can talk about that, because I'll have us covered when it comes to the really obscure crap that no one
hit me
is
with
ever
something
going to
really
know
obscure.
about.
Hit me with something.
You know this one. Silhouette Mirage.
Oh, Silhouette Mirage was a great game.
Right? God, that game's fantastic.
And, like, I think it's still... Well, up until Eternal Sonata, I hadn't seen another game that had done the whole light and dark thing, where, like, literally the light and the dark determines what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you talking about the polarity mechanic?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some games have done that to much more acclaim. Ikaruga.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Is like, I didn't play enough Eternal Sonata. I have it.
Eternal Sonata, like, the enemies when they're in light, they're one type of enemy, and if they go into a shadow, they're a different type of enemy.
Oh, that sounds pretty sick.
Yeah. Eternal Sonata is another super underrated game.
Okay. I'll have to follow
About
that one up. But
Chopin.
yeah, Chopin. But
Chopin.
Silhouette Mirage, I mean, combat, super fun.
That's
Polarity
super fun.
mechanic just adds another level to it, and it was a platformer.
Right.
In which there's like levels of this platformer that have mechanics that we haven't seen in other games. It was just, and it was all executed really well.
And
So,
it was difficult.
It was very difficult.
Back to the whole
Dark Souls.
Souls
So
wasn't the first game to do it difficult, by the way, people, in case you didn't know.
okay, so let's come up with a meter. Would a Dark Souls player finish it?
Probably not.
God no, they wouldn't finish level 2.
I don't know if it's because they would try. I feel like it would be dismissed versus like them giving it a chance. They would just be like, oh well, I don't like this game, so I'm going to quit. Versus them actually trying to get good at it. Because that's an argument that a lot of Dark Souls players will use against you is like, oh, I don't like Dark Souls. Well, you're just not good at it. And it's like, I don't think that's how that works, but okay, whatever makes you feel better at night and your little badge of Dark Souls honor.
I just imagine them like snuggling up and their pillowcase says I beat Dark Souls on it.
Can we please make this a real thing? Like a pillowcase that says I beat Dark Souls? Or even a shirt. Like, I would settle
I
for like...
guarantee you those exist. Those
like,
have to exist.
Let's check it out. I beat Dark Souls shirt. I'm searching right now. Images. They have ones that say you died.
Cute.
Nope. They don't have one that says I beat Dark
Really?
Souls.
Oh my god.
Alright.
We're gonna make millions.
Yeah.
Nobody take this idea until we've implemented it.
I mean, if we ever reach any sort of critical acclaim with this podcast, we can then produce merch, and that will be our first piece of merch. I beat Dark Souls.
And then there's a variant that says I beat Dark Souls, and I still think it's bad.
On the back it says, and I still think it's bad. So people walk up to you, they're like, I beat Dark Souls too, and then you walk by and they're like, wait. Get their hopes up. But no, what I was saying is, like, Dark Souls players, I don't feel like, or I guess a lot of people wouldn't necessarily give it the chance that it deserves because it is a difficult game and it's kind of hard to, like, ease your way into it without, like, just getting destroyed a bunch of times at first until you finally get used to the whole polarity mechanic and the way it works. Because I think that's a very skill-based, difficult
Okay, yeah.
game.
So now we're going back to technical skill versus
Patient skill.
Patient skill. That's it.
So yeah, I think that's more of a technical, like, you have to actually precisely do something or like know the enemy's patterns 100%, otherwise you're dead.
Yeah.
Because you have to know which enemies are which polarity. And if you shoot them with the wrong polarity, they don't die.
Yeah, but I mean that's a pretty quick, like, you can pick that up on the fly. Like, oh, it's not working.
Right,
hit,
but...
what was it, jump and hit triangle, I think? Would switch your polarity while still facing the same way? Anyway.
That's still something that, like, you could pick it up on the fly, but actually executing it, again, like switching back and forth while you're going along.
That is where most of the challenge was for me, at least.
Yeah.
Was the technical input difficulty.
And apparently, I sent you that article about Fury, but somebody was complaining because Fury, they said it's the wrong kind of difficult because it literally requires you to do like very precise inputs versus I can run away forever and then hit them. Like, the bosses, because it's like an endless boss battle, or, well, not endless, but it's a boss rush mode, basically. Yeah, and the bosses don't let you, they don't let you run away. Like, you can't just, I mean, you could, but you'll still die, and you still have to dodge their attacks no matter what. So, like, literally they were like, oh, this game is too hard, and I'm not good at it, and because I don't have the actual technical skill to be good at it, so I don't think it's a good game. And I don't think that's fair to say for a game, like a technical skill-based game.
Yeah, that article was baffling. Because the author had said, "Oh, I thought I was going to get the rush that I got from playing classic retro quote-unquote games from their childhood."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess I don't know how old this person is, but they referenced, some technically difficult games.
They did. And
so I don't know what they were expecting.
I think it's just that Fury might be like more precise than some of the games that they reference.
Okay.
So the fact that it's so precise is where they really got hurt. Like, again, frame perfect inputs. That's like...
Fury, is it really... I mean, like...
I don't know.
How many bosses do you have to fight before it's a frame perfect or die situation?
Let's, let me see here. Blah, blah, blah. Animation. It's a frame perfect parry at the last possible second. So it has frame perfect inputs in it.
Are they required to beat the first 3 bosses?
Well, probably not the first 3, but there is one. There are frame perfect things in the game, and I mean that's enough for me to say that it's a very technically skilled game.
Yeah. So there's an easy mode. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Are there higher difficulties?
I think there's like easy, normal, and I think if you beat it, you get an extra hard.
Okay.
Like,
which is probably like insane, almost frame perfect the whole way through type of situation.
There's Promenade.
Oh yeah, that's the easy mode according to the article.
And then there's Fury, which was essentially normal mode, and then Furier, which is hardest. And it says, like, on the thing it says, a true challenge for Masters of Combat unlocks after finishing the game once. But apparently you have to finish it on Fury mode in order to unlock that mode.
Okay. So, a lot of games have this higher difficulty. But it sounds like Fury is saying you must be at least this good to complete the game. Whereas other games would go, you can complete the game at this difficulty and we'll give you the full game. You don't have to be, level 100 good. Whereas Fury is saying you have to be level 100 good to just beat the game.
I would say it's more like they're saying you can't be on easy mode. You have to play it the way we intended you to play it. And I don't think that's unfair.
No.
Because some games don't have a difficulty at all.
Yeah.
So to say the developers were like, oh, you have to play it the way we intended you to play it, otherwise you don't get to unlock the additional content, then play it the way they want you to play it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with that. I don't see how a game critic can say this game is... I mean, at the end, the critic was saying it's not a good game, right?
Yeah, they said they basically didn't like it.
So, yeah, you don't have the right to say it's a bad game. Do you?
No. I wouldn't say so. I feel like you can say that you didn't like it because you felt it was too difficult for you to execute some of the specific inputs, but I don't think it's fair to say that it's a bad game because it is difficult.
Okay. I agree with you on that.
But I think that's a good stopping point for right now.
Yeah, there's probably some stuff in there that we can use. Okay, so to wrap things up, Ocarina of Time, overrated. Wind Waker, better than Link to the Past. Souls games after Demon Souls, overrated. Peter Molyneux,
Overrated.
And our life lesson is under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we covered a lot today.
Yeah, we did.
All
More
right.
than I thought we would.
Yeah. Pretty tangential at times, but we'll see how it ends up.
I mean, it's only about an hour long, so I
right.
think we're okay. And
Yeah.
then, so next time we'll probably be doing a little bit different format, talking about game history versus talking about our opinion on games. We'll obviously put our opinion in there because, that's the kind of person I am.
No, that's strict facts. That's just facts, buddy.
However, it'll be a little different, and will actually hopefully be more informative of a different nature.
Instead of just talking shit about games that we don't appreciate.
I like to talk shit, though. It's fun.
Oh yeah, me too. No, we'll bounce back and forth, I think.
All right. So we'll just say goodbye to everyone. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.